Every country is unique. Every culture has its own food, its own history, its own traditions. But then there's Japan. Japan is not just a different country, it's a different category of country. You walk into a convenience store at midnight and find fresh, handcrafted food that would embarrass most sit-down restaurants. You take a train that arrives to the second at the exact moment it was scheduled to arrive 6 months ago. You drop your wallet on a busy Tokyo street and come back 2 hours later to find it exactly where you left it, untouched with all the cash still inside. You search for a trash can on a city street for 20 minutes and find nothing, and yet the street is spotless. You ride a subway packed with 1 million people, and the loudest sound is the hum of the wheels on the track. You watch a 70-year-old woman sweep the pavement outside her home at 6 a.m., not because anyone asked her to, but because that's just what you do. None of these things happen by accident. None of them are explained by geography or luck or natural resources. They are the product of something that Japan has been building layer by layer for over 1,000 years. Today, we're going to look at the full picture, not one aspect of Japan, not just the trains, not just the food, not just the safety, the whole thing. The underlying thread that connects all of it. What makes Japan genuinely, fundamentally different from anywhere else on Earth? To understand Japan, you have to start with geography, because Japan's physical situation shaped everything else. Japan is an island nation, or more precisely, an archipelago of about 6,800 islands, separated from the Asian mainland by the Korea Strait and the Sea of Japan. For most of its history, this physical separation was not just a geographical fact, it was the defining condition of Japanese civilization. For over 200 years, from 1603 to 1853, Japan enforced a policy called sakoku, literally chained country. Under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan closed itself almost entirely to the outside world. Foreign trade was restricted to a single Dutch trading post on a tiny artificial island in Nagasaki Harbor. Japanese citizens were forbidden from leaving the country. Foreigners were forbidden from entering. Death was the penalty for violation. For 2 centuries, Japan developed in isolation, refining its own art forms, its own social structures, its own philosophical frameworks, its own systems of governance and economy, without significant external influence. The result was a culture of extraordinary depth and internal consistency. Values, aesthetics, and social norms were not borrowed from neighbors or diluted by waves of immigration. They were developed organically, debated internally, and embedded deeply across every layer of society. When Commodore Perry's American warships forced Japan open in 1853, the country that emerged from Sakoku wasn't a backwater. It was a fully formed, highly sophisticated civilization that had spent 2 centuries perfecting itself in private. And the values forged in that isolation, the emphasis on collective harmony, on craftsmanship, on social responsibility, on the aesthetics of restraint, didn't disappear when Japan opened. They became the foundation on which Japan built one of the most extraordinary modernizations in human history.
Here is perhaps the most fundamental difference between Japan and most Western societies. In Japan, the group comes first. This isn't a slogan. It's a deep, structural feature of Japanese psychology, visible in everything from how children are raised, to how companies are organized, to how people behave on a train at midnight. The Japanese concept of wa, harmony, sits at the center of this. Wa is the idea that social cohesion, the smooth functioning of the group, the preservation of collective peace is the highest social value. Individual desires, individual opinions, individual needs, they exist, but they are subordinated to the needs of the group whenever the two come into conflict. This plays out in ways that can seem almost incomprehensible from a Western perspective. In Japan, saying no directly is considered socially aggressive because a direct refusal disrupts wa. So disagreement is expressed indirectly through implication, tone, and silence. A Japanese person who says, "that might be difficult" in a business meeting is in all likelihood saying no. Everyone in the room understands this. The refusal is communicated without the confrontation. There is also the concept of tatemae and hone, your public face and your true feelings. In Japan, the maintenance of social harmony requires that you often present a different face to the world than what you feel internally. This isn't dishonesty. It's a sophisticated social technology for preserving relationships and group cohesion in situations where expressing raw individual feelings would cause disruption. For Westerners, this can feel suffocating, but it produces something remarkable at a social scale. Public spaces where conflict is rare, service that is consistently excellent, communities where people take care of each other without being asked. The individual in Japan is not less important. They are differently positioned, understood primarily in relation to the groups they belong to: family, company, neighborhood, nation. Identity is not I, it is I as part of us.
There is a word in Japanese that has no direct equivalent in English: shokunin. It is often translated as craftsman or artisan, but that translation misses the depth of the concept. A shokunin is not just someone who is skilled at their job. A shokunin is someone who has dedicated their life to the mastery of a single craft and who understands that craft not as a means to an end, but as the end itself. The pursuit of mastery for its own sake. The idea that doing something well, not just well enough, not just adequately, but truly well, is a form of moral seriousness, a form of respect for the craft, for the people who will receive it, and for the world. This philosophy permeates Japanese society at every level. The sushi chef who trains for 10 years before being allowed to prepare rice, the ramen shop owner who perfects a single bowl of broth over decades, the train driver who practices stopping within 10 centimeters of a platform mark until it becomes second nature, the cleaning crew that turns around a 1,300-seat Shinkansen in 7 minutes with the precision of a surgical team, the garden designer who places stones in a dry garden according to principles refined over 500 years. None of these people are doing a job. They are practicing a discipline. And that distinction between doing something and practicing something produces a quality of output that is visible everywhere in Japan and genuinely difficult to replicate. The shokunin spirit is also why Japan's service culture is the way it is. Omotenashi, the Japanese approach to hospitality, is not customer service in the Western sense. It is not a policy or a script. It is a genuine orientation toward the other person, anticipating their needs before they are expressed, attending to every detail of their experience, treating every interaction as an opportunity to give the best of yourself. In a country where the shokunin spirit is the cultural norm, the baseline for excellence is simply much higher.
One of the things that most surprises visitors to Japan is how orderly everything is, without any obvious enforcement mechanism. No one is standing at the train door telling people to let passengers exit before they board. No one is watching to make sure you don't eat while walking. No one is checking that you separate your recycling into the correct categories. No one is patrolling the streets to prevent littering. And yet, the rules are followed. Almost universally. Almost all the time. How? The answer lies in something social psychologists call internalized norms. Rules that have been absorbed so completely into a person's sense of identity that violating them feels like a violation of the self, not just a violation of a social expectation. In Japan, the mechanisms that produce internalized norms are exceptionally powerful. They begin in early childhood. In schools that assign children responsibility for cleaning, that teach listening as a skill, that make the connection between individual behavior and collective well-being explicit from the age of 6. They are reinforced through the concept of haji, shame. Japanese culture is highly sensitive to social perception. The discomfort of being seen to violate a norm, by neighbors, by colleagues, by strangers on the train, is a powerful motivator. Not because anyone will punish you, but because you will feel it. And they are sustained through the concept of seikinin, responsibility. In Japan, responsibility is not primarily something imposed from outside through rules and enforcement. It is something that a mature, respectable person carries internally. You clean your school because the school is yours to care for. You arrive on time because your time belongs to the people waiting for you. You don't litter because the street belongs to everyone, and you are part of everyone. This is the infrastructure of Japanese social order. Not laws, not surveillance, not punishment, but a web of internalized values so deeply embedded that compliance doesn't feel like obedience. It feels like being yourself.
There is one more dimension of Japan's difference that is harder to quantify, but impossible to miss. The extraordinary aesthetic consciousness that runs through every aspect of Japanese life. Japan has a word, wabi-sabi, that describes an entire philosophy of beauty centered on imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. The beauty of a cracked tea bowl that has been repaired with gold. The beauty of a moss-covered stone that has been shaped by centuries of weather. The beauty of cherry blossoms, treasured precisely because they fall within a week. Japanese aesthetics do not seek the permanent, the perfect, or the grandiose. They find beauty in the transient, the subtle, the understated. A single flower in a plain ceramic vase. The grain of wood on an unvarnished shelf. The sound of rain on a tile roof. This aesthetic sensibility shapes everything Japan produces, from the design of its buildings, to the presentation of its food, to the packaging of its products. A department store gift wrap in Japan is a work of art. A bowl of ramen is arranged as carefully as a painting. A Japanese garden is designed so that every stone, every pruned tree, every raked line of gravel exists in precise, considered relationship to everything else. This is also why Japan's pop culture, manga, anime, video games, fashion, has such extraordinary global reach. It is not just entertainment. It is an aesthetic tradition of unusual depth and consistency applied to modern forms. When you watch a Studio Ghibli film, you're experiencing the same aesthetic sensibility as a Zen garden or a tea ceremony, translated into animation. Japan exports beauty, and the world, for the past several decades,